Through annexation, Chattanooga has changed in population and physical size, but we've also changed in other ways. Over the decade, there's been a significant transformation in the skyline, most noticeably in the city's central business district. Since 1970, 13 office buildings have been constructed or expanded. The most eye-catching downtown, the Blue Cross Blue Shield building, whose reflective glass captures another landmark, the Commerce Union Bank, now the tallest building of the city's profile. The 1970s brought 2 new hotels to downtown Chattanooga and 10 new restaurants opened, the majority of them encouraged to do so by approval of liquor by the drink. Major renovations occurred for 20 older buildings in the downtown area, making possible more office space, more shops, more housing for Chattanooga citizens. Several governmental agencies found homes in the downtown area with the destruction of the old county jail and construction of the Justice Building on the same site. All Hamilton County criminal justice functions were gathered under the same roof, including the second largest electronic surveillance system in the nation. City Hall expanded, as did the Hamilton County Courthouse, and the Chattanooga Housing Authority and TVA built offices in the central business district. And that's not all. The decade also brought us 3 new parking facilities, a downtown hospital, and several parks to enjoy.
I think that Miller Park and the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Bicentennial Library, which we had put together as a community, were a kind of catalytic force that encouraged downtown development, along with many, many other things.
As the decade ended, so did completion of Market Center, a major redevelopment project which included widening of sidewalks, landscaping, and street and sewer work for the downtown thoroughfare. Adjoining and to a large degree overlapping the central business district is the Golden Gateway, a massive undertaking in itself. Conceived in 1958, the project was begun with the idea of turning an inner-city slum into a commercial, industrial, and residential area. The project was completed financially in 1977, but development continues in a district that has realized 20 new commercial and industrial developments and 7 new housing complexes, representing an investment of $48 million. Development also came to Amnicola Highway, particularly a new police services center and fire training facilities. The center, named after former Fire and Police Commissioner Gene Roberts, consolidated the city's police department under the same roof and served as a base for the largest mobile crime lab in the nation. And other parts of town had growth spurts too, as hospitals gained width and height and added special services for patient care. Older neighborhoods weren't being ignored either during the course of the decade. In many, they were getting a shot in the arm with community development and urban renewal. The decade began with the Highland Park Code Enforcement Project, which resulted in the rehabilitation of over 1,800 homes. As that project wound down, 5 other neighborhood programs got underway. A clearance project near the UTC campus eliminated some of the most blighted housing in the city and added 16 acres to the campus for new classrooms, student housing, and a coliseum. 4 projects, Orchard Knob, 3rd to McCauley, East Lake, and Fort Wood, were designed to improve those neighborhoods by spot clearance and rehabilitation of over 4,000 homes. Street improvements were also planned and begun, a good example being in the Orchard Knob urban renewal area, where the center lane of Kelly Street was a railroad track. Well, the Belt Line has since been relocated and the residential street made whole. Outside the old city limits, areas annexed during the early 70s are slowly but surely getting the services they were promised.
I think basically the city's probably done a pretty good job with the extension of larger water mains, putting in water plugs. They've done a fairly good job in terms of the basic fire station locations, because we've built a number of fire stations, recreation, schools, so forth. Probably the slowest thing and the most frustrating thing has been the expansion of the sewer system. And that's not altogether under the control of the City Commission, because it is very, very costly to put in this, and they want to maximize all the federal grants they can get in terms of extending the sewers.
Trying to get there from here became an issue in the latter part of the decade, as Chattanooga and Hamilton County hassled with bridges, roads, and airline service. The Walnut Street Bridge, the first highway bridge across the Tennessee River, was declared unsafe and closed in 1978 after nearly 90 years of service. That closure caused as much controversy in the latter part of the decade as did annexation in the early 70s. For more than a year, city, state, and federal officials, environmentalists, preservationists, politicians, and influential citizens have been bickering over where a new bridge will be built, who will pay for it, and what will be done with the old Walnut Street Bridge.
If we could unite as a community and agree that there is no point at which everyone could be satisfied and go ahead with this project, then I dare say we would have an excellent chance of completing it within, well, a reasonable period of time. But if we have to go through some litigation on it, it likely will delay us, and that's unfortunate. I hope that will not be the case.
In the meantime, traffic has increased on the Market Street Bridge, where reversible traffic lights are now set up to control traffic flow during rush hours. The old Jotty Bridge is taking up the rest of the slack, at least for now.
I think one thing that most people don't realize, we already have problems with overloading on the old Jotty Bridge. And with the State Route 29 project coming along quite well, that will be our next problem area, which is one of the reasons for trying to move ahead on the Walnut Street Bridge, so you have some alternate crossing routes in the central city portion, particularly for those people that are going to the university and the hospital area and the areas east of downtown.
And then there's the two-lane Thrasher Bridge over Chickamauga Dam, which has to be closed to be widened to 4 lanes. Well, to take care of traffic while that bridge is expanded, another span is being built, this one connecting Amnicola Highway with Access Road and Hickson Pike. Completion is set for 1981, and if that sounds like good news, well, it is, but there's a small problem to contend with: getting motorists from Highway 153 to the Detour Bridge without overloading the already overburdened Hickson Pike. As we end the decade, here's where we stand on that.
The big hang-up, I think, with a lot of folks right now is the connector that would take it on into 153 on the north bank, or on the north side. The State Department of Transportation has just recently sent us their final environmental impact statement on the area around the north side there, where it would go through and into 153. This opens a way now where they can go and contact the folks at DuPont, who own most of the property that it would go through, and see if they can come to the to a happy medium on the price and whatnot, and get the thing started. It may not be the full-fledged clover leaf that was once envisioned there, but it will be a workable solution, and yes, it will go into 153 on the Hickson side of the river, and we're studying ways to improve Amnicola on the south side of the river at this point in time, and I think it's all going to coincide pretty well.
Traffic flow has improved in some areas over the decade with the completion of Riverfront Parkway and improvements to Holtzclaw Avenue and at least 5 others. And don't forget a major relocation of railroad tracks.
And that was kind of a high-profile thing in those days, like the Walnut Street Bridge is today, for example. It was a great detriment to surface transportation. We'd have all of our major streets blocked, oftentimes simultaneously, with the long freight trains crossing them. And this railroad relocation project that was it was worked and worked with by a number of administrations of government, because it involved levels of government from private enterprise and railroads to different state governments and the federal government, and it was quite a thing to coordinate. But I would like to remember and remind that was completed in '72, and we now take it for granted that we are not hindered by long delays of surface trains, but it wasn't too long ago that we were.
Continued improvements to city streets and county roads looks cloudy at best as we enter the 80s. Local governments are heavily dependent upon state money for street construction and repair, and the state coffers aren't as bountiful now as they were in years past. Our latest energy crunch caused a decline in gasoline consumption and a corresponding decrease in the state gasoline tax collections. And that spells trouble for road building and maintenance programs throughout the state of Tennessee.
Somewhere along the way, we have to determine what our priorities are as to what services can we provide for the same amount of money we've got coming in. And the frills are going to have to be cut out completely. Or, well, let's just say we're going to have to sit down and see what the priorities of, what money do we have, what can we spend it on, through a priority of need, I think.
Of course, some streets require attention sooner than others, often as a result of increased traffic generated by too much commercial development on primary streets.
Where does that end, and what do you do about situations like that, where you get almost a clog of growth along one particular section?
It's not going to end as long as the people in the community don't want it to end. The only way it will end is if it ends at the beginning, and you don't strip commercial on every arterial, that you back your subdivisions up to them say we're just not going to have commercial on every arterial. This is going to be a commercial-free area on this particular arterial. But there's been absolutely no willpower on the part of almost anybody in the city to want to accomplish that. So consequently, the kind of development that we have now on Brainerd Road, I think you can anticipate on Hickson Pike, Dayton Boulevard, the other major arterials.
If there's any place to maneuver, it's in the air above Chattanooga. In the past decade, the city has lost two major airlines, United and Eastern, because deregulation of their industry freed them to seek more lucrative markets. A massive search is underway now to attract a new airline here, but in the meantime, we have only Delta and Republic to service.
I think that's going to hurt us probably as much or more than anything that's happened in this community. Because one of the things that we need to do in this area, and I think this is one of the directions that the Chamber Committee will go in, is to diversify our industry not only in terms of manufacturing, which we are already a very strong manufacturing type of economy, but also to look into the office, to the professional, to the white-collar type job, and try to get some expansion in that area. And that's where airline hurts us the most.
The future of Chattanooga's economy may very well depend on our ability to attract white-collar workers here, because in terms of industrial growth, Chattanooga lost more than it gained during the 1970s. On the brighter side, Chattanooga gained almost 100 new plants and expanded 400 in the 70s in spite of recession 3 times during that decade. 9,000 new jobs were created too, ensuring a high ranking in the nation for employment of non-farm workers. In fact, the latest study by the Department of Labor shows we are 14th in the country in that respect. There are several reasons for those good statistics. Over the decade, Chattanooga's geographic status as a central distribution point was enhanced by completion of interstates to Nashville, Atlanta, Knoxville, and Birmingham. That, plus a strong, skilled labor force, rail service, and access to the river served as positive factors in industrial growth. The 1970s also brought more development along the Tennessee River, and though late in coming, interest in a publicly owned river port to reap benefits from the Tennessee-Tom Bigby waterway.
Chattanooga has the potential of benefiting from this project more than any other city in the nation. And I find that the county, the city, and the private sector has a unified position here that we are going to make as much progress as we possibly can to see to it that we provide for the future needs for water transportation.
There is concern, however, that Chattanooga may have joined the over-the-hill gang as far as industrial growth is concerned, and that the 80s will bear that out in terms of unemployment, slowdowns, and lack of new industry. Many factors formulate the base for that pessimism, but several stand out as major contributors. Number one, air pollution standards. You may remember that back in 1964, Chattanooga was ranked the most polluted city in America. 1/2 of its residents were breathing unhealthful air, and we had the highest tuberculosis rate in the nation. Well, in the 70s, we made great strides in cleaning up our atmosphere. A Clean Air Act was passed, and by 1972, 160 major air pollutant sources had complied with local air pollution control regulations. By 1974, Chattanooga's air had reached the national primary air quality standard. Well, that was obviously good news for the city's residents, but in a way, bad news for industrialists. While Chattanoogans are breathing more easily today, industry is choking on anti-pollution regulations that are so expensive to comply with. Many potential industries for Chattanooga bypassed us for that reason in the 1970s and located in less restrictive areas like Bradley and McMinn counties. Then, too, those counties had something Chattanooga couldn't offer: lots of land for industrial sites. But perhaps the most destructive element of the 70s came in the form of labor, or rather certain actions by labor that outweighed its positive image of skill and expertise. In November of 1978, a mass of nearly 10,000 union members packed into Ingalls Stadium for an awesome show of unity.
Labor is concerned, and we want to encourage management and government to become concerned about the trend against fair wages and working conditions, especially when those wages are established by boards or commissions without any concern for the negotiated rates for comparable work.
And they served vocal notice that trade unions wanted their share of industrial profits through higher wages and increased benefits.
The purpose of this rally is to say that we are tired of the voice of the building tradesmen and the labor people not being recognized. We've asked for things that we think are reasonable, and every time we've asked for it, either citywide, countywide, statewide, nationwide, why we get pushed aside.
As the speeches ended, union members swarmed out of Ingalls Stadium and marched downtown, clogging traffic for nearly 2 hours. Later that year, Quaker State Oil and Continental Can decided not to locate in nearby Marion County because of labor troubles that shut down construction of those two non-union plants. We mentioned those two incidents because it was Chattanooga union members who picketed the sites and prompted the company's departure. It's been said that those two events scarred the area and put Chattanooga more than 20 years behind as far as industrial growth is concerned. A Chamber of Commerce task force recently underscored the gravity of the situation in its recent report on the image Chattanooga projects to prospective developers.
Thanks for watching News Channel 9. For our latest updates, like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications.